Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zare, and of course, with me as always is the one, the only Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Happy Memorial Day.
It's today.
It's not a day
it's
you
the day
say
after Memorial Day.
It's not really a day you wish people a happy one.
Yeah,
like it's
more of a respectful.
It's a respectful holiday. Yeah. I like how we turn everything into like a barbecuing day. 4th of July barbecue. Memorial Day barbecue. Every holiday becomes a barbecue. And it was actually a perfect 3-day weekend here in New York City. I don't know about you over there.
Oh, it was beautiful this weekend. Really, really nice.
It was absolutely perfect. We went out, we barbecued, we went to the bar. Yesterday we didn't barbecue, we went to a bar and we hung out at the bar with like a bunch of friends till like 8 o'clock at night. We were there for like 8 hours. So I got totally obliterated yesterday. And today I woke up like $1 million. Felt great.
Like $1 million?
Yeah.
Nice.
It was great. It was actually a really fun weekend. And then, reality hits and I got to do shows and it's 90 degrees in the studio and now I'm sweating. Just like I'm like a lunatic. It's like I'm running a marathon here. But you look like you got a little color. You went out in the sun.
I was outside a lot.
That's what normal people do, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
We're supposed to go.
I saw them. Yeah, they're out and about.
Do you ever wonder, like, we get so obsessive with the technology stuff, right? Like, this is what we do, though. This is the stuff that we cover. Like, we're so screwed up from it. Like, nothing impresses us anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're impressed for like 5 minutes. And after that, like, we're done. Like, that's it. What's next? This sucks now. We want a new one. And most people aren't like that. Like, most people buy a phone. They spend like $99 and they absolutely love the thing and they don't want to let it go, right? Like when their upgrade comes, they're like, no, I like my phone. I don't want to change it. I had a discussion with someone. People? They have a 4S. They have an iPhone 4S, one of my relatives. And I was talking to her. She's like, the battery's a little, I wish the battery was better. I'm like, why don't you get a new phone? They go, no. I like this phone. I don't want to change it.
Well, I mean, I kind of harp on this, but with regards like the screen size, the iPhone, one thing that people probably don't understand that I do is I regularly spend time going back again and again to various products, including the iPhone 5S, which is the one that I have. And I use these things. I use them around the house. I sort of reevaluate them continuously. Am I missing something? And I have to tell you, I just had the iPhone out last night, and I fired up like the FIFA soccer game on it. I played a movie, put captioning on. I was trying some of the news apps, reading on it, and I'm sorry, but that screen is so frickin' small.
Yeah, it is.
And the text, depending on what you're looking at, can be so fricking tiny. Whatever. I'm 47 years old. I get it. I'm getting older, and I suppose if I was 23 and I could see 2020 without squinting, everything would be fine. But it's just semi-ridiculous in this day and age.
But is it?
In fact, I can see it in the background. I think it's fair to say like the Samsung Galaxy S5 is a big phone. It's a phone. It's not a phablet.
Is it 5.5 inch or is it 6 inches?
This one? I think it's 5.1. These are different kinds of devices.
I have to tell you, aesthetically,
and
they are.
I don't know if I held it up well enough so you could see it.
Aesthetically, they're like identical phones. It's insane, actually.
This is like baby phone and real phone, and it's I don't know. I think this is not like Paul hates Apple. I'm never going to stop harping on this thing. That's not really the point.
Thanks, AT&T. The segment brought to you by.
Yeah, it's the only device I own that makes that sound. By the way, my Windows phones don't do that. It's a real issue, and we're kind of always reevaluating what makes the most sense, screen size, different devices and all that. I get that. Surface Pro 3, big discussions around the screen size, but man, they got to move on.
They do.
They really do.
They do. And but here's the thing, Paul, if you've never had a larger screen phone, right? Like most of these people,
that's not it. No.
Like to a lot of people, it's
you go into the App Store in this thing, or any of the iTunes stuff, like the iTunes Store app, or the text on stuff is so tiny.
Yeah, it is tiny.
I mean, you kind of, you do that thing where you're like, geez, like really, like what is going on in here? And it's just, it's just too small.
You know what's
It
happening?
just is.
For me, I'm starting to have trouble with like regular websites where like on my laptop, I have to actually make everything like 110% in
Sure.
Chrome so I could actually read it like a normal person instead of staring at the screen trying to like figure out what's happening. And I'm like, I'm not yet. Not yet.
Right.
This cannot happen yet. But everything
Well,
is like at 110%.
no, depending on the size of the screen and yeah, I mean, you're going to need that kind of thing. I mean, I do that a lot myself as well.
You know what
And
the
I don't
problem
want
the
I don't
problem with
want
the
like
larger
big
ones
text on
are?
everything.
No, but like these larger devices here. I know people that say like, "Oh my god, I don't know how you use this phone. This is like 5.5 inches. The LG G2 is like 5.5 inches. Like,
Yep.
I don't know how you use this. This thing is gigantic." And then I look, they're using a 4S, and I'm saying, "Yeah, you're absolutely right." When you compare
Well,
these two devices, like it's actually
yeah.
scary to go from a 4-inch display or
By the
like
way,
three and a
I
half
get
inch
that people are
display.
used to what they use, and I do believe that whenever Apple, when Apple, we know Apple well enough to know that when they come out with whatever size screens they come out with, we've heard 4.7 inches, 5 inches. They'll still offer the old one, right? I mean, that will be an option for those people that really do like those screens, and we'll see. And it will be a little skewed because that will be the low cost offering, and so it'll be the one a lot of people in third worlds buy, or a lot of people who can't afford the the multi-year contracts or whatever will buy. But I really do think that given the choice, people are going to move to these bigger devices because it's not just because they're easy to read. That's a very simple statement, but a device like that can take the place of two devices.
Absolutely.
My wife reads the newspaper every day in the Kindle app on her Galaxy Note 2, which is like a 5.5-inch screen, it's a phablet. Um, I don't. I mean, I use like a Kindle Paperwhite for that kind of thing, but this is like one less device for her, and for a lot of people, that's valuable.
With the iPhone 6 getting a larger screen, in your mind, in a perfect, oh, thank you. The intern got me coffee. Look at this, iced coffee made by our
Nice.
interns here at GFQ. We have the
I
best
need an
intern.
intern.
We have the best.
Does anybody
interns.
live in the Boston area that wants to be my intern?
I was talking to you about that. I was telling you, and I thought you might have acted surprised. You could get college credit
Right.
if you become like an accredited internship, which is very easy to do. We're accredited, and look at me.
Yeah. You don't have to look like Igor from Young Frankenstein or anything.
I mean, you could do an internship, and you could get college credit.
You got to be able to play Call of Duty.
Yeah, and you got to make me iced coffee. That's all I require.
Iced coffee is a requirement.
And drinking is definitely not frowned upon here. So, like, I kind of want you to be like a professional drinker. And I know that's kind of hard at 22 because most of these kids are like 22. But that's the only criteria that I have. Like, the two interns that we have now, they've been elevated to producers. And they're the biggest drunks on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
They're such lushes. And I love it. I mean, it's great because it fits in
That's
perfectly
fine.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
I forgot what my point was.
It's something about screen sizes.
I'm positive it was. Oh, so with the iPhone 6 coming out,
Yeah.
it's going to be a 4.7-inch screen.
Okay.
I'm not against getting an iPhone. I mean, for the longest time, I've said I don't want to get an iPhone because I want to be in the environment. But I wouldn't mind a 5-inch iPhone. Is 4.7 inches a decent size for the iPhone, or has the market kind of outgrown that 4.5 inch display and gone over 5? Because everything's like 5.5 inches now.
I'm personally of the opinion that I'm trying to find what did I do with this thing? I moved all my stuff around. I moved my phones away from the computer when we start because I don't want that feedback. But this device, the icon, is a 5-inch. It's 5 inches exactly, I believe. And so if you kind of compare these two, the icon is not quite as big as the I can't.
I mean, the icon is a big phone, but
Well,
I
but
wouldn't say it's like this is obnoxiously big.
It's a little bit. It's actually not much smaller than the 5S I just showed, but I really do think that's kind of the sweet spot. I mean, for Apple, let's say Apple just has a 4.7-inch version. They don't have a 5. I mean, that would be kind of typical Apple. They're kind of on the trailing edge when it comes to the screen size stuff for whatever reason. They're really going kicking and screaming into it.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they've fallen behind when it comes to the screen size and they've kind of hung on to this 4-inch display? I mean,
yeah, I think they're trying to make it as easy as they can for everybody. And that means starting with developers who would need to create apps that run at different screen sizes and potentially resolution / aspect ratios and that kind of stuff. And they don't want to get involved with screwing that over. And I'm sure that any considerations they may have for a next gen device will fall into that category.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want another iPad situation.
Right. And they sell, if you look at all of the iOS devices that they sell today, you see an interesting range of resolutions and also aspect ratios. And so I think they want to minimize that. And I think that's part of it. And it may simply boil down to, they made a good argument, for example, when they introduced the iPhone 5, that you could use that single-handedly. And you can, if you have, I have big hands, and I can, holding it in one hand, reach my thumb up to the top left corner of the iPhone 5S in this case, which is same size screen, same size device. And there is some benefit to that. There absolutely is. I'd rather be able to see it, but there's some benefit to that. And I think they need to balance all of this stuff that they've been saying and claiming about, one-handed use and whatever, with the developer concerns and with usability concerns for the users and all that. So we'll see. I'm very curious. I think we talked about this. I think a bigger screen iPhone is going to be blockbuster.
I think it would be great. I think it's going to be one of the biggest things that they've done in recent years. They have WWDC coming up next Tuesday, which we are going to be doing live coverage here on the network right before What the Tech next week. So It'll be a crazy busy day, all day, because we'll have that. If anything, I may start What the Tech just a little bit late. That's okay, Paul?
So I'm going to be in Colorado next week, by the way. I don't mind starting it late. I'll be able to do the show. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But if it makes sense to do it on a different day,
oh no, you know what? I think
that could be okay too.
I think it would make total sense to do it that day, because when we do the coverage, and this speaks volumes for Apple. We speak about the Surface. We've covered Samsung events before here on the network. The sheer amount of volume that we get to the website with just new viewers, I mean, it's insane. It's astronomical how many people just tune in for the Apple stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
The keynote is a Tuesday, no? Or is it a Monday? When is the second? I could be totally full of it.
No, it is Monday.
It is Monday. Okay, so I'm an idiot. So never mind. There's going to be no change. It's a Monday. But it's still like insane how many people tune in for that event. And I wonder why. Like, I wonder what it is. Like, Apple, normal people tune in. Like, forget about the Surface event, right? Like, the Surface event. That's Apple. It's like you and I and our viewers, and those are the people tuning in for that event. It's the people that are in the know. The Apple event, like people that I run into, I'll probably go to the bar afterwards, and I guarantee you, people that know what I do will come up and be like, "Oh, so did you see the Apple stuff?"
Right, but it's for people that aren't in the know. This makes plenty of sense. I mean, Apple is a consumer electronics phenomenon. I mean, and they only do a couple events a year. So
yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me. It blows me away.
If it was really about developer stuff, it wouldn't be a big deal.
But
the keynote is about announcements, and people like that stuff.
What did we get last year at WWDC? I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was a crappy event. I remember like it was one of the bad ones that they had done, and I was actually surprised. I was like, wow, actually, we didn't really get much this time around. The rumors are that this year's event is going to be around the smart home technology, automation, home automation. The emphasis is going to be on home automation. And we've spoken about home automation a bunch of times, and I've always been fascinated by it, and they've been trying this for years. I mean, IBM has been trying to do home automation with their X10 series. You remember that stuff in the 90s?
Yep.
And never took off.
Right.
Why home automation? I mean, literally 2 weeks before this, the rumor was that they were going to concentrate on health, and that's what it was going to be, a fitness device, which was really appealing to me.
Well, I actually think they're going to do all that stuff. They can't have a keynote that's a WWDC keynote that's just about fitness stuff. I mean, it will be about some range of things. And I don't think home automation is going to be the the big event. I mean, last year I just looked it up because I forgot. iOS 7 Mavericks, these were like the big things. I mean, they're going to have to talk about iOS 8 or whatever the next version is. They're going to have to talk about whatever they're doing with the Mac. These are things that will factor into the wider conversation. I don't think these are the focus. Maybe they'll announce the Beats thing if that's happening.
Maybe they'll announce the Beats thing. But do you think home automation will be a thing? Like, is that a big thing for people?
So, like so much else in life, I think Apple has the potential to legitimatize it, and that it makes sense from the standpoint of I have a phone with an app that can do stuff remotely to my house. Like I think that situation makes sense. My dad has worked in the lighting industry for God 25 years now, and longer than that. What am I talking about? For 35 years, and I look at some of the stuff that he has in his home, and my sisters and other people have in their home that is based around not so much. There's some automation stuff. The notion that you walk in, you have a control pad, and you say, "I want to. This room can be a scene," and that scene is, the dampers on the windows are open at a certain angle, and I hate that kind of stuff. And when we visit my sister in Pennsylvania, and you go into her bathroom, and instead of just having a light switch on off, there's like this control pad in the bathroom, with a slider and a row of buttons, and every time it's like, you spend like 10 minutes just trying to figure out what the hell everything does.
Yeah.
In fact, this is the house last summer where there's a switch in their house somewhere that shuts off every light in the whole house. What a wonderful convenience that is, except when you do it by mistake, and then you have a house full of children all screaming their asses off, because the lights all just went off. Hilarious, so I'm not having experience with it from that perspective. I'm not a fan of it, but the type of thing where, well, look, it's not home automation to have a simple thermostat that kicks in at 5 o'clock in the morning on, in the middle of the winter, if the temperature is below X number of degrees, because that makes sense, right? That kind of thing, that makes sense. You could picture being at work, and I want the lights to, you want to, for some reason, like someone's coming over, you want to automate the lights coming on automatically or whatever.
I mean, my friend, he has one of those like special keyless doors, and he has an app for the door, and he has it set to unlock before he gets home. So like he puts in the code and says like, I want the door to unlock at 4 p.m. because I know I'm going to be home at 4 p.m.
Yeah,
and the door's unlocked.
That's freaking stupid.
It is dumb.
That's precious is what that is. That's stupid. What makes a little more sense is, this is one of those many things I discover about my car by mistake, because that's how you
discover car technology.
Yeah. I have one of those key fob things that you can plug into your car and then you push button start or whatever.
Yeah.
So in my car, as it turns out, you don't have to plug it in. You can just leave it in your pocket. It still starts. You just have to be in the car. If I walk up to the car with the key in my pocket, I can unlock the door. I can unlock the trunk. The person on the other side can open their door. I don't even have to beep the thing, The dumbest thing about this system is that on the other side of it, when I want it to lock, I actually do have to lock it. I don't believe it locks automatically when I walk away.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be interesting. Maybe I'll find that out one day. It does. I don't think it does. It seems like it should. But so why not just have an app on your phone that's like a Bluetooth thing, or I guess you could have a fob or some smart bit of wearable technology where you walk up to your door, or you could be on your key fob.
But that is how it is. That's how it is.
That's fine then. No, if you walked up to the door and it unlocks because you're there with some fob in your pocket, to me that makes sense. That's
it does
fine.
that, but he actually
going
chooses
to a website
to use
or
the
whatever.
app.
That's baloney.
No,
that's baloney.
It baffles me because that's what it does. So what you do, it works via Bluetooth, and when you walk up to the door, it'll unlock it. It knows. But
that's fine.
He actually gets it to unlock prior to getting to the door. And
I
asked him that.
Anyway.
I asked him that. And he goes, well, the last thing I want to do is fumble around for the key fob to hold it up. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to. You just hold it up. He's like, yeah, but I like the door ready for me.
We are the laziest society that has ever graced this planet, and we are going to be wiped out in a biblical apocalypse that we deserve. This is the stupidest thing I've heard in a long time. I want to say ever.
We were drinking, Paul, and we couldn't. I'm like, what happens if you unlock it and you don't go home? He's like, well, I could turn it off. I'm like, it takes more effort for you to go in your pocket, get the app.
Right. What are you micromanaging here? This is like, and by the way, while I'm unlocking my door from afar with a smartphone app, why don't I kick off like a distafrag on my home computer while I'm at it? Like, what are we doing here? This is just abuse of technology. I think in the same way that when we got laser printing in the late 80s, and the first documents that everyone created looked like ransom notes because all of a sudden we had like fonts we could play with. I think at some point like a maturity kind of develops. and we stop abusing this stuff.
Well, it's
So
like the email. Everybody was using like Comic Sans and these crazy colored emails and
yeah, I almost just this is unrelated in a way, but as we were getting ready to do the show, I was looking at my email, and the thought occurred to me that the percentage of email I actually want to read is got to be less than 10%. It's got to be.
yeah.
Like an email is something that's evolved into something stupid for me, and I'm not going to solve that problem in my lifetime. But I mean, this kind of stuff is likewise like technology run amok. It's
over
technology
the top.
for technology's
Yeah.
sake. I thought you were going in a different direction earlier. You were talking about how technology is part of our lives, and we had just been talking about the weekend and all that, and how beautiful it was. And I got to say, one of the nice things about the weekend is I can just walk away from this. Because this shouldn't dominate your life 24 hours a day.
And it's great when you do.
Yeah. Now I say that saying that I go out for a walk and I listen to Audible books on my Windows phone with my Bose headphones. And I've just described a bunch of technology there, and to me, that stuff is obviously still technology, but it's not technology run amok. It's sort of, it's not something you let take over your life. I mean, it's not, I'm sitting on a subway blasting music out of my phone without headphones on. It's not, I have to walk around with an iPad and watch a movie, even though it's a beautiful day. Actually, my daughter, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. But
Ramble away, Paul.
this is actually a true story, just happened. Beautiful day. Again, my daughter came downstairs. She was up in her room. My son's out back playing football with his friends. My wife and I are doing yard work, so we're doing mulch and planting and whatever. Kelly walks out into the sun like an animal that has been hibernating. And she says, "Why is everyone outside?" And Stephanie, my wife, said, "Well, it's beautiful out, honey. I mean, we're out enjoying the outside." And she said, "But we have the internet."
That's funny. That's, what? That's a Thurrott thing.
Yeah.
After meeting your wife, now I get it.
Right.
That's a
now my kid. Now my kids are like this too.
Which is great. That's actually great. You were talking about the key fob, and then I'll move on with this. But I do want to continue the all motivation stuff because I think some of the stuff is silly, but some of the stuff is actually useful. I have a keyless.
That's, by the way, our job seriously is to point out the stuff that's silly,
exactly,
and to point out the stuff that's useful, and resist the urge to be stupid about technology.
No, we have to, and people blindly buy these things and. They have this thing where like, oh wow, look at that, that's so cool. This concept started like in Popular Science magazine. It was cool 50 years ago.
Yeah,
I don't think it's cool anymore, and I'll go into why. But I have a keyless entry on my car. I have a 2013 Infiniti, and it's really useful that you don't have to take the key and put it in. Okay, I get it. When it's not useful? When something happens to the car and you can't crank the engine because there is no key.
Right.
I had a problem with my car. And I needed to crank the car, but the key wasn't engaging. So I couldn't force the car. And there's a key, by the way. You could actually take it out and there's a key. But the key only opens, the key only opens the trunk.
Yeah.
Nothing else. So I'm standing there with this, expensive car, and I'm going, they took the key away, and now I need a key. What do you do when the key doesn't work? And I call up Infiniti. They're like, okay, yeah. you got to go. What happened? The car is now in lockdown mode. Okay, because the valet left the lights on and it killed the battery. So when he went to go jump the car, he reversed the terminals. So like he didn't do it properly, and the car freaked out and it goes, "Oh no, we're going into shutdown mode," and it actually shut down the entire electrical system in the car. So now I'm on the phone with Infiniti, but like easily this could be fixed if I could crank the engine. I'm on the phone with Infiniti, and they're literally telling me to do the contra code. Do up, down, left, right, hit the trunk button, hold it for 3 seconds, then hit the up button to unlock it. It was the most insane conversation I've ever had. You know how this could have been solved? If you had a key. Right. This is how this would have been solved. I wouldn't even have to bother with this. But yeah. I mean that's technology gone stupid.
Well, right, and that's my point. I mean, a lot of this stuff is technology gone stupid. You
want to hear something really screwed up, and this is terrifying. Okay, I was at the mall over the summer, and I had my key, and I hit my to unlock the car, and a couple cars down from me, it unlocked. His lights went off in his car, same exact car as mine. I'm like, that's weird. And I go over, and my key fob was working on his car.
Oh God. So I mean,
I could have
that kind of
technically
thing.
gotten in and driven away with his car.
I knew this guy I guess this would have been like the late '80s, who worked at a Ford dealership, and he was telling me that one of the Ford cars at the time, Ford Tempo, they actually only had 5 different keys. Now, this is back in the age of keys; it was physical keys, but they really only had 5 different keys. And so they knew that when they went out to the lot with like keys in their pocket, that they had a 1 in 5 chance with every car that they would be able to use that key to get in and get it started up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this is just secondhand information, and obviously it's also 30 years out of date, but I always thought that was insane. But I mean, you can kind of imagine how something like that could happen, and could certainly happen electronically as well in this case.
But with this home automation thing that Apple is kind of getting behind, there are 2 things that come into play. One, that Nest sold its thermostat to Google, which is interesting, and I think that thing is okay. It's a cool looking device, It's
a very Apple device, right?
And it's a very Apple device. And now the rumors are coming out that Google and Apple are both interested in buying Dropcam.
Right.
And it kind of makes sense if this is the direction you're going in, and you're going to make home automation a big thing in your operating system. But the other thing that people forget, the average person will forget, is you need a device to control all these lights and switches and computers, right? Like, it's not that it's doing something with your electricity. It's not this magic device that'll work with your breaker. You actually have to have some sort of device, some sort of Bluetooth or block device plugged into the outlet, and everything plugs into that to control the lights.
Right.
So how is that going to work? How are you going to do that?
Well, I feel like we talked about something like this a while back. This is like car technology. New cars have it built in. And old cars, you get like an Alpine unit or whatever, and you can add stuff. So you can add Bluetooth to a car right now. So in home automation, it's like putting Cat 5 into a new house construction, or building. It's something that will be built in.
So what about me?
New homes.
What about my 110-year-old house?
Well, I mean, at that point, obviously there are going to be these aftermarket ways to add those capabilities.
I mean, there are now, and they're little like add-ons, like little extension outlets.
Yeah,
and you just plug it into the wall, and then you plug the device into that, and they're like $20 a piece or whatever they are, But what are you going to do with like your regular outlets? Like throughout the entire house, you're going to get those. Not only are you going to get the device, but you're going to get those little add-ons and plug it into everything.
Okay, but that's a business, like my electrician could, do like the tech upgrade where each of your outlets gets one of these little units, and then, and a USB port and 2 normal port receptacles, or whatever. There's nothing stopping the GE, Lutron, whoever these companies are, from creating different receptacles that go in those, because the power plugs in your wall are just a rectangular hole. You can have any electronics in it, and I mean, you have electricity, you have phone lines, you have cable lines, whatever going through your house. You could wire all kinds of different stuff. I mean, it's something that you could add, absolutely.
I feel like for it to work, though, I mean, for it to work, like the concept that we have it, that people envision, like I think getting your electrical usage, reported every week. Find out what device is using the most. I mean, stuff like that. Those kind of stats are pretty cool, especially for me. If you're like a numbers junkie and you like looking at that and, comparing it, I think that's really cool. But in order to do that, A, you got to spend a lot of money getting these devices. 2, in order for you to get like this full experience of this, you need to get it on every single, part of the room and part of the house. And I don't think people are going to do that. And I think the experience is going to be kind of half-assed. It's like that. Do you remember that mock-up that we got for the health monitor for Apple a couple months ago? It was like their health application, and it gave you...
Oh, yeah.
It told you your blood pressure, it told you your O2 intake, it told you how many calories you burned. You're not going to be able to get all those statistics from the app. Your O2 intake cannot be measured from the phone. Your blood sugar level cannot be measured from the phone. You need another device for that.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, and people, like, I was talking to a relative, and they're like, oh my God, it's so cool. Did you see what Apple's doing? Like you could do all this stuff and I have diabetes. So
Well,
I could find out
okay,
like
but
what my sugar level is. And I go,
people thought the iPhone 5 was going to have a virtual keyboard that lit up on the table you were at. I mean, people are soft. I can't help with that. But I mean, you know, Priuses are expensive. Teslas are expensive. That's how these things start. When we first started wiring homes for electricity, people would put them in their existing home and they had like horsehair and newspapers and whatever else behind their walls. And they would put in like cloth covered wires that would eventually fray or get eaten by animals. And there'd be a spark and there were house fires because we didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. I mean, these things, they evolve over time. So yeah, I mean, airbags are expensive and only in luxury cars in the beginning. And now they're just everywhere. I mean, that's just a natural progression. It will happen. It's just not going to happen right away.
I mean, I'm looking at some of this, how to do home automation, and I'm getting a message. One of my relatives is a electrician, and he says this is going to be the thing for the next 10 years. Like, if Apple does this, in his mind, his business is going to pick up because more and more people are going to want this, and it is not cheap to convert these older homes over.
Sure.
Like
by which he means homes.
What?
By which he means homes.
Yeah.
Not older, like just homes.
Just in general, I mean, especially the older ones with like crazy old wiring, and in general, it's complicated, and you need to kind of know what you're doing in order to wire an entire house and not just one room. So he's looking forward to it, he said.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the drop cam thing is fascinating because more and more people are doing this home surveillance stuff, and how great would that be for Apple to have their own little camera, have their own webcam set up?
Yeah, this is another one I don't know about.
You're not crazy about the whole drop cam thing, right?
No, I mean, I used to have a friend who worked at a cable company, and cable companies, and by cable companies I mean companies that provide not just TV but phone and internet, broadband internet. They very much want to sell customers on additional things. In the old days, that would be like HBO and Cinemax, and today it means additional services related to internet broadband. That could be higher speeds, which is because it's just they flick a switch and they can charge you more. It's beautiful. But one of the things that this company was looking at, and this is probably 15 years ago or so, was this home automation / home monitoring stuff. And I got to test it, and they sent me a kit that had a couple of cameras, and you put them around your house. You could put them, like looking at the door outside of your home or whatever it is. You put it in a child's room, obviously, like look at a crib or something like that. And this was early days, and it was not very sophisticated and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. This stuff is this is crossing the line, I think, between like good use of technology and technology abuse. I mean, I need to look and see if something's in my house while I'm out at dinner. I mean, I already have enough stuff I'm doing on my phone when I'm at dinner. I'm Instagramming the meal. I'm checking it on Foursquare. I'm seeing which friends are nearby me on Facebook or whatever, all the stupid stuff that people do on their phones when they should just be paying attention to the person they're with. And now I have another thing I can worry about, another thing that will take my attention away from what I'm doing.
Not only do you have to check your email, you have to look and see what's happened if the cat is in the living room.
Yeah, it's like, oh, honey, look at the cat. Look at the cat. Look what the cat's doing. Jeez, I mean, really?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. So I know some people are going to love this stuff, and it's fine, I guess.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do with iOS 8. What I'm even more curious about, there were two other rumors. Actually, one crazy rumor that we'll go into, and I kind of like to do this before the event because, we could speculate, and it's almost like that whole wishful thinking thing, right? Like people thought that like lasers were going to shoot out of the iPhone 5. I think we could do it in a little bit of a more mature way and be like, this is interesting. That's not interesting. They did this. This is what the outcome would be before we even see it. So we could do that. But before we do that, I want to take a minute and talk about our Patreon campaign, guys. Paul and I have launched a Patreon campaign for the show. If you go to patreon.com/whatthetech, you could join in for as little as $1 an episode or even less. I mean, we asked for $1 an episode, but you could do a little bit less. Right now, we're at $330.25 per episode of What the Tech. If you become a patron, right, Paul? They're patrons?
Patrons, yep.
Right? That would be the proper term to use. Because they're not donating. I got yelled at for this. It is not a donation. It's a pledge. It's not a donation. If you pledge $1 or more, or even less, whatever you want to do, you get access to our bonus show. Our bonus show is called What the Talk. We record it after each show that we do, and it could be anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and it's just Paul and I just talking about whatever we want to talk about. Today, I'm going to rant about Memorial Day and a barbecue I went to. That's what I plan on talking about today. And it also helps us out, and every bit counts. If we reach certain goals, we're going to be able to do certain things. Like, be at $500 per episode, we're going to go ad-free on at least one of our streams. So we're going to provide you guys with an ad-free, uninterrupted live stream. For $1,500, we're going to take away all the ads. So there's going to be no ads at all on the podcast. So we're trying to reach these goals, and if we hit a certain amount of goals, we're looking to do live shows once a month, or not once a month, but once in a while. Once a month is too much of a commitment, Paul. Not going to sign up for that. For $1,000, Paul will hit me in the head with a hammer. People were asking me, like, what would you break? Like at the event that we went to last week, and was like, are you really, if you get $10,000 per episode, are you really going to break your MacBook? I'm like, I could buy like 2 MacBooks. If I were to get the $10,000 per episode. So it's interesting what people want to see. But if you want to donate, if you want to pledge, you could pledge by going to patreon.com/whatthetech. That is our plug for today. We're trying to do the ad-free thing. I know a lot of people enjoy the show ad-free, commercial-free, and we're hopefully going to be able to keep this up and continue doing that. Right now, we have 4 bonus shows listed. And people actually enjoy them, and they're watching, so it's crazy. It's crazy that people care. Paul, now I'm going to bring something up to you, and you're going to tell me if you think this story is BS or if you think it's real.
Okay.
There's a rumor coming out. I just closed this too. Great. There's a rumor that came out a couple days ago that Apple's working on an ARM-based Mac.
Yeah.
With a larger trackpad built into the keyboard. Now, okay. I don't know the source.
I wouldn't focus on that part of it.
Yeah. Apple's currently experimenting with a new ARM-powered Mac that includes a magic trackpad built into the system's keyboard. The company's also reported working on a new version of OS X that is compatible with these ARM devices. Apple's developing 3 new machines with these configurations. A iMac and Mac Mini, as well as a 13-inch MacBook and a MacBook Air. The iMac and notebook is said to have a 4 or 8. Is that 4-inch or 8?
No, I believe it means 4 or 8 actual processors, each of which is quad-core.
Each of which is, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't really I thought it was saying like it's like an 8-core or quad-core, and then they just had like a typo. 4 or 8 quad-core ARM 64-based device processors.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
So,
and I hate doing rumors, but I thought it was fascinating that this is a story because it's nutty. If 5 years ago I would have said this is insane, now not so much.
They've done Intel, so you think, well, they've done this before, they could do this.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand the point of it. I wouldn't dismiss the notion that they're looking at it. Apple perceives some benefit of having its own processor line, right? And it's worked out pretty well for them on the iPhone and iPad, in the sense that no one has ever used one of these devices and said, wow, this thing's a lot slower than like a Samsung tablet or whatever. No one's ever said that. They perform very well. So I think we can fairly say they're comparable with other similar processors and other similar products. But moving it to the Mac would be very dangerous. The ARM devices don't have the capability to run Intel software, even in like a virtualized or emulated mode. It's the reason you don't see desktop software in Windows RT, for example. It's just too slow, and it's unreliable. So I think that explains why there's so many processors. Maybe that's part of it. But when they went from PowerPC to Intel, obviously completely different architecture. But the Intel stuff was so far ahead of PowerPC by that point that they could do an emulated environment, and it worked. Anyone who used PowerPC-based Macs will tell you that you could emulate x86 or whatever and run Windows in a virtual machine, but it was slow. Performance was pretty lousy.
Yeah.
things are obviously improved going in the other direction. ARM, it does not have the performance characteristics of x86, and I just don't understand what the point of it would be. I mean, you'd be giving up all of the stuff that was great about the Mac, and to what end, right? A MacBook Air already gets whatever it is, 9 or 12 hours of battery life. That's fantastic. It runs all those apps. It's not fanless. I mean, I guess that would be the one thing, but I think for productivity use, the Mac is already a very efficient and mature platform. So what would be in other words, what's the one killer aspect of ARM? In this case, by ARM we obviously mean Apple's ARM.
Yeah.
Like, what would it be? Like, what would be the point? And obviously, I mean, Apple likes to control the whole widget. I mean, that would be their one thing. We want to control every part of the Mac experience, and I understand that it's in sort of a vague way, but I just don't see how this could happen anytime soon,
or how they're going to benefit.
Well,
soon. I mean, they obviously don't benefit, but why would they want to do that? Now, especially now with, these Intel chipsets are getting good.
Let's just pretend. I mean, let's say somehow they'll have some kit that, it will be like Rosetta was on Intel Macs, and
sure,
you could install your Intel-based software, Photoshop, whatever it was, and it would run at only a small disadvantage, and you wouldn't even notice, and it would be fine. Yeah, for a typical consumer, probably not for the Mac Pro guys. So what would this buy you? I guess it would buy you fanless, which is a big deal. You could potentially have much thinner devices. I don't think anyone looks at these things and thinks they're particularly thick, but thinner devices, potentially better battery life. Although again,
how much better?
They already get great battery life, so I'm not really sure. I don't think there's any. If you went up an hour in battery life on each model, I mean, is it?
Yeah. You know what? I'll sacrifice getting an Intel device for that.
Yeah, and if they do this, and I really don't think it makes sense today, but if they were to do it, it would make sense that they would start with the low end machines.
They have to be, and Apple generally doesn't get like this, but they have to be a little concerned as to where the PC market is going. And forget about the Surface. The Surface is expensive, and it's a very select few that are going to have the Surface, but Toshiba, for example, released a bunch of laptops this week. They showed a bunch of them off. And guess what? They're all these convertible devices or these dockable hybrid laptop devices. Well, you know what? They're not as pretty. They're not as elegant as a Surface. But you know what? The OEMs have never been like that. And look at what the PC market was like. Look at what laptops were like before the MacBook Air came into play. So maybe they are a little concerned, saying, well, okay, if this is the trend and this is what people are going to start using and getting used to, in 5 years, we better have some sort of solution to a counter laptop.
I don't know. I mean, Tim Cook, I think last year infamously made fun of Windows 8, referring it to what do they call it, a combination of a toaster and a refrigerator kind of thing. It would be awkward for Apple after that statement to come up with its own kind of hybrid device.
Yeah, but they also said they'll never come up with a smaller iPad too,
Right. No, I know, but that was in other words, that was that was a fairly bold way to say it. I guess the other way to look at it would be, what if you had an iPad that was an iPad and ran all those apps, and when you plugged it into the Apple keyboard, it turned into a Mac, right? You'd have to kind of really contort the truth of what's happening, but you could make the argument that this thing isn't a combination toaster and refrigerator. It's a toaster or a refrigerator. That when you unplug the screen, it's not a compromised Mac experience. It's iOS. You get those apps because when you don't connect it to the keyboard, that's what you want. But when you connect it to the keyboard, you get a Mac, and it's not a compromised, Apple iPad experience. It's a Mac. It's a MacBook. Maybe that's the point, that they could bring together their product lines in a way that provides for a more seamless transition between the two. And by the way, Macs are incredibly more expensive than iPads. iPads are really popular. iPhones are really popular. God, if there was only some way we could get more of those people to buy Macs and spend even more money with us. maybe this would be a way to make that happen. I'm only speculating based on, I would never have guessed that they would do something like that. That to me seems so anti-Apple philosophy.
Yeah,
But
because they like the separate mentality. And
although
listen, I like that
why,
too.
we don't know.
I like that. I like the fact that my laptop's a laptop and my tablet's a tablet. But
Yeah.
I don't think the generation that's coming up now that started off with a tablet, people are not using their laptops. They're just not. They're buying tablets, and normal people are functioning on these things. So how are you going to convert them over to buying a,
So what if you could plug in a keyboard and make it something awesome?
Exactly.
You know,
I think the future of these
it's
devices,
interesting.
The future of these devices is not going to necessarily be, the tablet. I think it's going to be like this dockable concept where you have this thing and you dock it, and all these devices work via this dock. So when you dock it, it becomes the computer, but it doesn't have to be docked. I mean, this could be just like a dummy piece of just a screen and a keyboard. It doesn't have to have the components inside where this, I think the future of this device is going to be one device with the components inside and everything else is just like this, just a screen and a keyboard, and that's it. Like, remember what Palm was trying to do with that folio?
Right.
Or like
where
a lot
it's really
of these,
your phone. Yeah, it's going out to your phone.
like
Yeah.
kind of. I can see
there
that
was a
happening.
Windows Mobile device that did the same thing. It was a big keyboard and screen. It was really you just taking your phone and kind of blasting it out to a bigger.
Yeah, I mean, why can't
device.
you do that? It's interesting to me on where this is headed, but I don't see Apple doing this now. I really don't.
see Apple doing it because it makes no sense, given what they're like.
But we haven't gotten a vision of what Apple's future is. When we talk about Microsoft has kind of laid it out there for everybody, right? Like, even if you don't agree with Microsoft's direction, and I was one of the people that was like, "Oh, I don't like this new UI. I don't want this. I want my taskbar, and I want this, and I want that." We have seen the vision of what this company is, and now, almost 2 years later, it's kind of making sense to everybody. We're all kind of seeing where they're headed. They did take a turn.
Their vision isn't so much making sense as they've adapted. I mean,
but they laid it out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Apple has not done that. I can't see what Apple's vision is going to be in 5 years because they've kind of slowed down as far as development for anything.
They're just releasing variants of the same stuff over and over again.
I mean, we talk about the MacBook, and it's like a joke now, but this bezel's insane.
I know.
The MacBook has not changed in years. I mean, they're a little bit thinner now, but that was 2 years ago. While, they're just expanding, going thinner. There has not been this major shift in this company, major direction in this company. It seems like we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to see how long we could go with this, and hopefully we won't turn into an IBM.
This thing, even if they were to do this, is not that next big new product that people kind of want from Apple. It's just not, like this would make sense in a certain way. I'm sure if, the Microsoft crew was running Apple, this is what they would do. But, this doesn't put them over the top. This is not the next iPad, right? So I don't.
But what is?
Right. Well, nothing. I think that's the problem.
I mean, I think we just got really spoiled. I mean, it was from 2000.
Well, no one's ever had a run like that.
No.
It was like they released Windows 95 three times
in a row.
That never happens.
No. And these are once in a decade devices that happen to come along at the same time.
Even bigger deal than that. I mean, it's I have to contort this. I mean,
No, I agree with you.
When CDs came around, music CDs, biggest deal in the world. We were sold on a bunch of stuff that ended up not being true. Like the thought behind a CD was, this is a pristine, perfect copy of the music. It is exactly as the artist intended it. It will never get better than this. By the way, that was baloney. But at the time, compared to the cassette tapes most of us were listening to, compared to albums, or whatever, it was in fact better. I mean, I know some people will argue the album thing, but it doesn't matter. But this was like some perfect digital copy. VHS tapes, which were movies, obviously, big deal, and were a huge deal for probably 10, 15 years or more. There were no, agreements about quality on that thing. It was terrible, but it was a big deal.
It was convenient.
And then DVD came around, and DVD was a lot like CD, where this is it, this is perfect, this is except that it's not, because we realize in the post-DVD world that HD exists, and these movies were made on huge format film and could, in fact, look a lot better than what was
But I mean,
possible.
DVD lasted what a good
decade or whatever.
even more,
decade plus,
yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, Apple basically, if you want to put it in the perspective of consumer electronics, I mean, I guess you would include the Walkman too, just to throw the iPod part of it in there. But it was sort of like, iPod, iPhone, iPad. It's like releasing those three things every other year.
The gap,
and sucking up all of that money that it took those companies had a decade plus to earn, sucking it down to 2 or 3 years. It's amazing. And the problem is you get used to it. And Steve Jobs comes out in his little fake turtleneck and you think, here we go again. This is going to be amazing. And you give him a pass when it's not amazing because it's amazing so much. The problem is it's not because he's gone. I shouldn't say that. I don't mean it like that. It just so happens though, since he's passed, that they just don't have anything. It's just the same stuff. It's like, look, a thinner iPad.
And plus, other people are doing good stuff too. I mean, Samsung is putting out
course,
crazy amount of tablets and phones, and
right.
The market
Apple
has changed.
will always have that. They change these markets. They'll always be the ones that made the iPod. They'll always be the ones that made the iPhone. They'll always be the ones that made the iPad. We cannot take this away from them. But it's also inevitable that you're starting a process. The photocopies are going to start, and that's what happens. They're in court right now with Samsung over this. And so in the past, because they were able to, the Mac. Remember, the Mac had come out 30 years ago. It did not take off in a meaningful way at first, and after it did, the PC came along and kind of blew it away, and that was the end of that. Or it would have been the end of that. But then this other stuff started happening 20 years later. Usually the Mac and then nothing is how it works for a company, for them to have iPod, iPhone, iPad like that, bang, bang, bang.
And plus, I mean, they had to come up with something. And we have to remember that. I mean, they were dead in the water at the start of the 2000s.
Right,
They were forced into innovating.
If all that Apple had ever done was Macs, it would be a tiny company. It would be a tiny company. And they would have 5% of the computer market. And they would be successful. They would be making money. And there would be people who would be like, I don't understand why more people don't use these things. These are such wonderful products. Yes, they're a little more expensive, but they're really great. And that's the way it was for a long, long time. But because they've done these other things and moved into these other markets, it's a different world. And they'll always have that. Like I said, they'll always have that. We can never take that away from them, and we shouldn't try to. But it's unusual to be that successful. Microsoft had Windows in an Office, and those things, they were like VHS and DVD. They lasted a long, long time. They're still going. It shows you the power of that kind of thing. But they really haven't had anything else, have they? Not really. Not to that level of success. And you have like a product that you can make where people buy them year after year after year. Not every single version, not every single person, but I mean, you've got this like built-in user base, in this case of over 1 billion people each, that, are repeat customers. It's a wonderful thing. Apple did it 3 times in like a decade.
Yeah. And it's
crazy. That's crazy.
And plus, I mean, let's not take away from, the success of the Air and, it became a little bit more mainstream throughout that entire thing. But
the Air would never have
happened if it wasn't
off in the way it had if it weren't for the halo effect on those other products.
Yeah.
In other words, they could have come up with the Air and it would have been a minor blip in the computer industry, which wouldn't have evolved in the way it has. It would have been like, oh, look, Apple makes thinner, lighter computers than everyone else. And then those guys would have copied them and it would have went back to the normal 95-5 split. They still would have been a leader. They still would have been the first ones to do it. It still would have been interesting, but the impact would have been far, far less. This stuff feeds into everything else. And that's why that stuff is so amazing. It's not, you didn't just sell X number of iPhones or X number of iPads. You've impacted.
See, and I'm the total opposite, Paul. My first Apple product was a MacBook. And I got it because my wife needed a laptop and she was working with someone that had a Mac, and she's like, oh, I kind of want this. And she picked it up. She goes, I hate it. You could have it. I don't want it. She couldn't do it. And I started using it, and I let it sit in a corner for like a good year, Paul. I wouldn't go near this thing. I was like, I kind of like the way I do stuff. And I kind of got forced into it when my laptop broke. And now, I mean, I buy because I like the trackpad, and I like it. Like I'm used to it now. But I'm
Right,
not.
of course.
I'm still in the
Yep.
in the Windows world. I'm using everything at this point. But I think that's not the norm. Most people aren't walking into a store and saying like, "Here's $1,200. I've never used this thing. Thank you." Like you become introduced to Apple with everything else that they're
Look,
doing.
it's possible that there was a bigger audience of people that would have been interested in Mac computers, um, but they just couldn't afford them, and so
I
they
think that's the
bought
case for many
PCs.
of them. Yeah, I think that's
It's
the
like,
case
well,
for many
by
of
the
them.
way, I'm sure there's a huge audience for Mercedes-Benz vehicles too. It's just that they're so expensive. So, the average Joe would love to have an E350 or whatever, but um, you know, Apple was able to sell these products for a lot less. The iPod when it originally came out, I think it was probably $500 or $600 or whatever, which was expensive but cheap for an Apple product. And of course, they came down big time. You can buy an iPod whatever for $79 or something. I'm sure. Um, iPhones are priced just like other smartphones, and they're wonderful. They're small screens, but they're beautiful. And obviously, iPads are they've in so many ways have set the market up. They kind of just teed it up, and they teed up everything, including the price. They're $500. That's what they cost. So
Yeah.
that's what tablets cost. And mini tablets are a little less expensive, but these are affordable luxuries for people, and that's they've seen great success with that. It's interesting. I mean, it's funny, and the Mac has benefited, but it can only benefit so much. When you talk about a product that starts at $1,000, or I guess today it's $900.
Yeah, and you look at Microsoft, and what would you say in the 2000s the best product that they put out? It was probably the Xbox, right?
Microsoft?
Yeah. Like we were to
I
compare,
wouldn't
like
say that. No,
if we were to
well, the
compare
original
like
Xbox.
their hits, right? Like Apple had like 3-4 years in a row that it was hit after hit. What was
Yeah.
Microsoft's big hit?
Right.
It was probably the Xbox.
No, it was probably Windows XP, but
And what yeah, I guess.
in the sense that here we are, it's 14, well, I guess 13 years later,
people are grabbing
there's
on
still
for
400 million people using that thing.
for dear
400
life. They
million.
don't want to let go.
It's not even supported, and there were 400 million people using it. That's insane. And that was a product that didn't take off right away either. I mean, Windows 7 sold very, very well as well. There were other factors involved with that, but that was a product that everyone you'll never read like a bad review of Windows 7. Everyone looks at this and says this thing's really solid. It's great for what it is. But those are software products. I mean, like they're also kind of slice and time things. Windows kind of moves on. There's always a new version. The original Xbox was a PC. The Xbox 360 was a bizarre power PC thing that was the most poorly conceived and unreliable consumer electronics product that's ever been created.
Yeah.
It cost them $1 billion in warranty-related fees to replace all this broken Xbox 360.
And they sold how much? 80 million.
80 plus million, yeah.
And they lost
well.
$1 billion. And they lost $1 billion on it.
And that's after, by the way, the $5+ billion estimated to R&D the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a product line that's never actually made money, and people don't seem to understand that. But whatever. So I don't know. I don't know how to call that a success. Obviously, the Zune stuff wasn't a success. Yeah, like What News to Bing has seen moderate success, but that's cost them a lot of money.
The Microsoft mouse.
Microsoft's hardware is actually pretty great.
It is pretty good, yeah.
Surface has gotten off to a slow start. It didn't help that they also had $1 billion,
Another loss.
a write down, I guess, in
Yeah.
that case. They made too many of them. But, you look at the Surface Pro 3, and this thing is amazing. It's a beautiful device.
How do you like it
they're
after a
getting there,
week?
so you never know. I mean,
After a week, Paul, how do you like it?
I love this.
Do you still
thing.
feel the same way, or?
Yeah, so like I said, next week I'm going to Colorado, and so I'll travel with this. I want to take it on a plane. I'd use it on the plane. The train ride on the way home from New York. But I really want to exercise it on a plane and see what that experience is like. Use it in a hotel. Use it with different accessories, Ethernet adapters, and use it in unfamiliar networks and actually use it. It's been amusing to me to watch. There were some people that published reviews of this thing after just 2 days of use, which I think is reprehensible and is kind of a way to call out the people who have absolutely no credibility whatsoever. I mean, even the Wall Street Journal, that woman published her review today. I mean, she's had this thing for 5 days. I really, I mean, I mean, listen, I've used a lot of computers and portable devices, tablets, phones, whatever. Can't use something for 5 days and,
Well,
and render a judgment. I
you know
mean,
why
what?
they do it, right? They want to beat the other guy to posting the
Yeah.
review, and
So
they're not real
I do things
reviews.
a little differently, but I find that kind of behavior to be disgusting. So that's too bad. But yeah, I mean, my overwhelmingly positive. I mean, the more you use things like this, the more the little niggling things occur. Like you see things, you see weird things, you see power management doesn't quite work the way you expected it to. You see, oh, this isn't necessarily ideal. I wish this was different, whatever. But you know, the nature of this device is it's got to do everything and hopefully do it really well. And I'm actually kind of blown away by how well it does work. So, like I said, I'll travel with it, but I like it. I write about it every day. I'll keep doing that, and then I'll review it eventually. But yeah, I think overall they've struck a nice balance with this one.
Listen. I use it for a couple hours. I was playing around with it, and it's a phenomenal device. I couldn't say anything bad. One thing that bothers me a little bit is the keyboard. I wish they had a pro level keyboard.
Yeah. So if you don't like the keyboard, it's Bluetooth. So I mean, you could the keyboard that I use with my desktop computer, I could travel with this. It's not necessarily ideal, but I mean, I could do. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I could, but and you could do. I mean, if you're going to use it at home, you could certainly do that. I mean, I guess it would depend on what your needs are. But
Yeah, no, I'm talking like the quality of what's on my laptop.
yeah,
Have another attachment, have it a little bit pricier if that's what you're going to do, and just have it feel like a real keyboard and trackpad.
right.
I mean, this one comes close. I mean, it's much better than the previous ones, but I still think it's like a little off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like it. I mean,
Yeah, you could dock it.
bigger
Just
is
saying.
always better for me, as far as these things, and bigger but thinner and lighter. Could you do that, please? So we'll see. But I like I said, you have to kind of strike a balance, and I think they've done a nice job with this. The previous devices were a little too compromisey. The screen was too small, the device was too thick, the battery life wasn't good enough. They've really kind of fixed all that stuff.
Could it become
the
your
aspect
main?
ratio of the screen is wonderful.
Could it become your main device?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You remember last summer, I think it was, maybe it was after I got back from Europe. I used the Surface Pro 2. Was it Surface Pro 2? Maybe it was a Surface Pro 1, I guess, at the time, for several weeks with the docking. With the plug. I guess it was the pluggable USB 3 dock at that time, because my desktop computer had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing track of when this
No,
happened.
you're absolutely right. That's what happened.
Whenever it was, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And there were some issues around that kind of stuff. I mean, with fan noise and all that kind of, whatever. But honestly, the performance was good. I did all my stuff off it. I did all the Skype stuff. It worked great. I mean, this machine, if anything, should be better. I would have concerns about fan noise and that kind of thing, and heat. And I will test that. And when the docking station comes out, I will get that, and I'll try that, and we'll see. I mean, if it was going to be my actual real world everyday machine, I might want an i7 version. Not the i5 that they loan to reviewers, but
The nicer one, yeah.
it seems like it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So this is what we're going to do, guys. If you're watching live, you could stay tuned and watch our post show. I'm going to talk about what this product is. We're going to play a little game if you're watching. If you're listening, I'm sorry. It's going to be very difficult for you to kind of figure out what we're doing. But for the post show, we're going to do this. And if you're not watching live, you can watch the post show. We post it on Patreon every week for our Patreon supporters. You could donate whatever you want. You can go to What the Tech, patreon.com/whatthetech. You could pledge whatever amount you want, and you get access to all the post shows that we do. Also, if you want to help us out, you could do so by using our Amazon affiliate link, gfq.co/Amazon. You could click on the banner on the top of the website. You could click on the thing, Paul. Just click on the thing. Click on the banner on top, and we get a little tiny credit every time you buy something on Amazon, and it goes a long way. Hey, Paul, what's your website? What do you do on that site? You talk about computers and stuff, right?
I do. Well, winsupersite.com is my primary website. And then, I've got the book stuff I'm working on. I think I'm going to do a Surface Pro 3 book, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I got to do a Windows Phone 8.1 next, and I might do a Surface Pro 3 book this summer.
So you like it that much?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a huge book, like like a 100-page kind of thing, but yeah, I think it's good enough to warrant it. Yeah.
Very cool. You can follow Paul on Twitter at The Rot on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. You can follow me, and you can follow GFQ Network at GFQ Network also on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, What the Tech. Just search for What the Tech GFQ. It'll come up on Facebook. And that's it, guys. We'll see y'all next week on What the Tech.